Hello again from my front porch. We are nearing Christmas time, and I am here in my Grinch sweater. I, am wearing my Grinch shirt because for a couple of reasons. One, because I actually like the Grinch. I think he is a very relatable character, and the older I get, the more I find myself relating to him. And I saw something on Facebook a while back that actually was pretty relevant. It said the Grinch didn't hate Christmas. The Grinch hated the way people acted around Christmas. And there's actually some truth to that, and there's some lesson to be learned there. And in fact, we're going to talk a little bit about that here today with the topic that I wanted to touch on. But I'm also kind of wearing the Grinch shirt because, you know, some people have sort of indicated I'm being a little bit Grinchy this year because I haven't decorated. You know, I don't have my North Pole sign and all that stuff on. I got my pillows out because I'm always trying to keep the pillows on the porch in sync with whatever, you know, the holidays are coming up or seasonal stuff. But the inside the house, nothing. I did not set up my tree. I know some of you are like, oh, the horror. Yeah, I did not set up a Christmas tree. I have not decorated. And people say, well, why not? Well, because it's just me. I'm the only one here in the house. There's nobody else here. and I know the Christmas purists will be like, well, but you still decorate for the joy of you're the only one looking at it. Okay, you know, and there might be some merit to that. However, the other part is for Christmas itself, I'm not even going to be here. I've told my parents I'm going to be with them. See, as I and my siblings have all gotten older and our families have fleshed out and, you know, expanded, just becomes more difficult for us to all be together for these kind of holidays. And so we did Thanksgiving. We all most of us got together. There's still a few people, because again, it's difficult to get everyone together for this kind of thing. And so but a large part of us, we got together back at Thanksgiving, and that was it. That was the excuse me, Smith family gathering, if you will. And well, I mean, I say Smith because, you know, mom and dad are Smith, and that's, you know, but obviously the branches of the family going off from that center Smith trunk, you know, have other names. But this Christmas season, all the family units had things going on, and none of it was with my parents. So I told my parents that I would come over Christmas Day. I'll be there for Christmas Day and bringing in Christmas with them. And then my dad's birthday is the next day, the day right after Christmas. And so you know, then there'll be Dad's Day. You know, that you're just focusing on him, not as an extension of Christmas, but just his day. And so, you know, he seemed to like the sound of that, so we'll make that work. But so that's why I have not decorated, because, you know, you go to all the trouble of decorating, well, then you're looking at it for a little while, and then you gotta go to all the trouble of tearing it all down. And it's one thing if you're doing that because there's going to be a whole bunch of people seeing it, but if it's just for my benefit, honestly, I'm okay with not having it decorated for my benefit. So anyway, that's the story behind the Grinch thing. But I want to go back to the observation about the Grinch not being opposed to Christmas, not having issues with Christmas, but having issues with how people acted around Christmas. And it's going to seem like a really weird segue, so hold on tight. But last night, I was just flipping through the streaming services and trying to find something just to turn on a few episodes of and just kind of decompress, just kind of zone out and fall asleep to. And so I landed on some old episodes of the Twilight Zone. I know, some of you are like, that's hard, that's not really relaxing. Well, I think it is. I think it's really good. But one of the episodes that I did stay awake for, that I did watch, it's actually one of the best known and in most lists of the best Twilight Zone episodes of all time, it's always generally one of the top 10, if not one of the top 5. And I know there have been some iterations of the Twilight Zone where, you know, in the 80s and then more recently there were attempts to revive things. There have been some repackaging of some of the old stories. I'm talking about the black and white 1960s era, you know, Twilight Zone, the real stuff, if you will. So I was watching this episode. It's generally one of the classics. It's generally considered to be one of the top, if not, if it's always in the top 10, if not in the top 5. It's an episode entitled "The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street." It was from the first season of in 1960. Originally aired March 4th of 1960. And by the way, I'm reading from my little, some people think that I just do this stuff off the cuff. I sit here and I just start talking and randomly say, nonsense and stuff. And actually, that's mostly true. But there are times where I do give just a little bit of thought to what I want to talk about. And so, like, I have some cue cards right now with some information because I didn't want to mess this up because this is kind of important. So anyway. Watching this vintage episode of Twilight Zone called "The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street" from March of 1960, and it's a powerful episode that had a lot to say about the environment of things then, with the Red Scare and the Cold War and all kinds of stuff going on. But it struck me that there was a massive poignancy to it. And it ties in with the whole why the Grinch felt the way he did things. So those will come back together. Just trust me. So anyway, in this particular episode, it starts with this just standard American suburbanite neighborhood in the 1960s. And there's this flash and this loud noise. And all of a sudden, all the power goes out in the neighborhood. Not even just like the lights, but like they can't start their cars, their lawnmowers don't work. Nothing is working. Telephones aren't working. Nothing's working. And so all of the people come out from their houses and they all start talking to each other and they're trying to figure out what it is. And there's this one little kid named Tommy that he starts saying, oh, he read about this in a book or a comic book or something. He read about this about aliens, that aliens came and did this kind of thing, and people are like, that's nonsense. But as the episode progresses, little things happen that cause these neighbors to start to turn on each other. They start to question, what are you up to? What are you up to? And at first they're thinking, that you're a foreign spy or something like that. But pretty soon, everybody starts kind of buying into this aliens thing that the little boy Tommy was pitching, and they all started. Then out of nowhere, one guy's lights in his house come on, and everyone's like, "Well, how come your lights are on?" And just the whole thing unfolds. One individual from the neighborhood has left the neighborhood, gone to a different neighborhood to see if they were having the same issues. And as he comes back in the shadows, one of the people, the guys in the neighborhood, shoots him, kills him. Thinking that it's a monster coming in. The title again, Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. That's the monsters, the aliens. And so shoots. It turns out, no, it's just their neighbor guy who just went walking the other place. And so then some of the neighborhood people turn on the guy that did the shooting, but then they all start. Some of them turn on the kid. It's all the kid. The kid may be the alien because he's the one that even knew about and all this kind of stuff. And it ultimately turns into like a riot in this peaceful little neighborhood that was peaceful before these events all happened. But then here's the kicker. The episode ends with, and I pulled this out of a summary from Wikipedia. So I don't want to be breaking copyright infringement. So this is the way that Wikipedia defines. Now, if you haven't seen the episode, I'm sorry, this is a spoiler. However, since the episode came out in 1960, if you haven't watched it by now, I am not going to apologize. So here's the way they describe the end of it, and I want you to really listen to this. Meanwhile, at a nearby hilltop, two humanoid aliens are observing the riot on Maple Street. Two humanoid aliens are observing the riot on Maple Street while using a device to manipulate the neighborhood's power. They comment on how simply fiddling with routine leads people to descend into paranoia and panic that can be exploited. I'm going to pause there for a moment. Again, this is from Twilight Zone, March 1960. I'm going to read that statement again. That the aliens comment on how simply fiddling with routine leads people to descend into paranoia and panic that can be exploited. Now, I got to tell you, I read that, but this is already in my head when I was watching. I read that statement here on the Wikipedia page, and I was immediately started thinking about some of the stuff that happened during COVID. The excessive extremes that we went to, that we allowed ourselves to be herded into doing, because, well, we just want to be safe. We got to be cautious. And does that mean we should not be cautious? Does that mean we should not use protocols when there's going to? No, but no, I'm not saying that. But there was no common sense. I mean, seriously, the cloth masks are going to prevent that. Standing 6 feet apart from the person in front of me and the person behind me, yet having other lines right next to me of people doing the same thing, somehow going one way in the shopping, in the grocery store, where I'm wearing my mask, but I don't have to have anything on my hands, but I'm grabbing stuff on the shelf. And these were the protocols that would protect us. I mean, really, you look back in hindsight and you just think, how are we so gullible? How are we so stupid? How did we fall for this? But that's what immediately, that kind of thing. I'm not just picking on that, but I'm just saying how relevant this line was. The aliens comment on how simply fiddling with routine leads people to descend into paranoia and panic that can be exploited. They also discuss their intention to use this strategy to conquer Earth, one neighborhood at a time. They then ascend a stairway into their spaceship, which then takes off. But they also discuss their intention to use this strategy to conquer Earth. Now, these are aliens, talking about conquer. But if you slip into the world of conspiracy mindedness, which I'm actually a fan of, instead of talking about aliens talking about conquering the Earth, what if there are some powerful people? What if there are some powerful entities that don't necessarily want to conquer the Earth, but they just want to control and manipulate how things unfold on the Earth? That statement still has relevance. They also discuss their intention to use this strategy to conquer Earth, one neighborhood at a time. And you can, again, extrapolate that to be one community, one state, one nation even at a time, but finding what are the hot buttons. What can we mess with and manipulate here that will cause them to turn on themselves? And this is really driven home, and where it really just, I mean, I was already pondering all this stuff while I was watching it, but then Rod Serling's closing narration comes in, and I'm going to read it to you verbatim, the way that Rod Serling says it. I thought about actually putting in a clip of Rod Serling here, but again, I don't want to get busted for copyright. So this is not me imitating Rod Serling. This is just me reading what he said. So this is what he said, his closing narration at the end of the episode. The tools, and really, I know I keep interrupting, but I mean, really pay attention to what I'm saying, because it is eerie, the parallels in what these words say to what could be happening around us as we speak. The tools of conquest do not necessarily come with bombs and explosions and fallout. There are weapons that are simply thoughts, attitudes, prejudices, to be found only in the minds of men. For the record, prejudices can kill, and suspicion can destroy, and a thoughtless, frightened search for a scapegoat has a fallout all of its own for the children and the children yet unborn. Let that settle in for a minute. And this is not a political thing. I'm not saying this is bad against Democrats. If I was saying anything, I'd say it's bad against both of them. This is about the human condition. What's going on inside the hearts of humanity that is currently on display in so many parts of our world right now. For the record, prejudices can kill, and suspicion can destroy, and a thoughtless, frightened search for a scapegoat has a fallout all of its own for the children and the children yet unborn. The point being, when we allow ourselves to be sucked down that path, to lose sight of our intellect, to stop being logical, to stop being rational, and we give ourselves over to being purely emotion driven, especially by the most lowest form and debased negative emotions, it will lead to tragedy. Not even today, but for generations to come. We see that on display in our world today. And the reason that this jumped out to me is because we are at Christmas time. You know, peace on earth, goodwill toward men. Rod Serling ends his closing statement. That's not the whole statement, because we always reference the Twilight Zone at the end. This is the last phrase, the last sentence of that. And the pity of it is that these things cannot be confined to the Twilight Zone. They're all around us. They rear their ugly heads. Now, I know that the irony is most people, 95% of people, will agree that the world around us right now is too ugly, too negative, too hostile, that these things about prejudices and attitudes and the horrible thoughts that people can have, that these things, the frightened mind looking for a scapegoat. You think of how many people want to blame, well, it's the MAGA crowd. Well, it's those liberal Democrats. Well, it's this type. It's that race. It's that nationality. It's that country. It's trying to take all the bad that we don't like and just drop it in the lap of a group we've defined as being the problem, even though they're not. They are no more the problem, any of those entities, than anybody else. The problem is here. It's people. It's inside us and what we choose to do. The Grinch did not have a problem with Christmas. He had a problem with people. People who behaved the way this Twilight Zone episode actually put fully on display. At this time of peace and goodwill toward men, how are you embodying that? Are you going to be holding grudges? Are you going to be looking condescendingly down your nose at people who you don't agree with their opinion on things? Are you going to judge somebody because they look like someone who you don't trust, or they look like someone who might not be a good person, but you don't actually know them? Are you going to attack somebody because they're saying stuff on social media that you don't like? Or are you going to practice peace on earth, goodwill toward men, the very kind of thing that the people in Whoville had to learn once all the trappings of Christmas were yanked away from them and all they had was recognizing the positive emotion, the positive feeling, the Christmas spirit. When they did that, they linked arms, they sang their songs, and even the Grinch took notice. Are you going to fuel the Grinch's disconnection, or are you going to contribute to the Grinch's heart growing 3 sizes that day? Are you going to be the kind of person who's a monster on Maple Street, or are you going to be that joy to the world, at least in your little world, your little Maple Street, your little neighborhood? This is the best time of year to try. That's my challenge to you. May it be a Merry Christmas to all around you, because of you. And with that, I'll see you next time from my front porch.